just need one, right? Yeah. Hello? Can everyone sit down? We're about to start. We were doing well on time, but now we're not. So I'll be even briefer for the presentation of the moderator. I'll just say that we have the great pleasure of having Mr. Vince Comiso, co-founding partner of entertainment, 9 Story Entertainment, and Mrs. Jocelyn Stephenson, executive creative producer of Mint Candy. But before we start this panel, we have a little video to show you.
I play Raymond. There's these fairies, and if you pass the whole level, they give you new powers. I played an aircraft game where you have to like shoot zombies from the air.
What is a zombie?
They're dumb. They're really dumb. And they think if they eat a brain, it will make them turn back alive, but as I was saying, like, they're dumb. It doesn't happen. Webkins. It's this game with animals, and it comes with stuffed animals on the tag. There's like something you have there on the tag, the code, so you can put them on the accounts.
His bed is full of them. He must have. So I said, please don't bring any more webkins. So he's got like 50 webkins.
Like websites that have games, family.cn, Treehouse. Puzzle games and decorating games. Plants vs. Zombies. Team Umizoomi game. On my cousin's computer, I just play Angry Birds, but do you know that there's any different kinds of Angry Birds you can play, like Music Angry Birds Space? My favorite game is probably a game called Minecraft. Minecraft.
There's a game called Minecraft that she likes to play.
Minecraft?
I call it mindless.
Like, we'll play together, like, say, Wii tennis or Wii bowling. You know how you can serve the ball fast? Well, I, like, hit the ball, but it doesn't go any faster, so he, like, aces me every time. And I used to really play tennis, so I don't even understand.
Thank you, Chantal. Thank you, Chantal, and thanks, JJ, for yet another amazing video clip. Thank you. And thank you all for being here today. 9 Story Entertainment's thrilled to be sponsoring the YMA Children and Youth's Media Conference yet again this year. And this year we're thrilled to have Jocelyn Stephenson with us. Jocelyn's the executive creative producer, film and television for Mind Candy. Now, Jocelyn, I just figured out we met 19 years and 2 days ago.
He figured it out.
Yeah, well, good with numbers. Working on the Magic School Bus in New York. And I remember we were having a script meeting. It was my first ever. I didn't know what was going on. And I remember her screaming on the other end of the phone. And I realized now it was 10 o'clock at night that she was talking about picking up her typewriter and throwing it out the window.
I can't remember why. I was.
Yeah, it's a typewriter. It was a
Did I say right?
You said yeah, you did.
And I was working on computers.
Well, Jocelyn's been doing this for 40 years now as a creator, writer.
Stop with the numbers.
How many years now? Well, I said 19 for. Okay. So she started at Sesame Street. Subsequently worked for many years as a writer-producer for Jim Henson Company. Chief Creative Officer at HIT from 2001 to 2006. Creative Director at TT Animation from 2006 to 2012. Credits include Sesame Street, Fraggle Rock, The Animal Show with Stinky and Jake, The Magic School Bus, of course, Bob the Builder, Thomas and Friends, Barney and Friends. So quite an extensive resume is in preschool content. And in her current role at My Candy, she co-wrote and produced the Mushy Monsters first film, as well as overseeing the development of an animated Mushy Monsters TV series. We are going to learn a little more about both the film and the TV series over the course of the session. So I'll turn it over to Jocelyn at this point, who I think has a video to share with us.
Actually, I have a PowerPoint, which seems really boring for this crowd, but they asked me to just give you some background on Mind Candy and Mushy Monsters, because there might be people here who don't know. It's an amazing British phenomenon, though I understand Canada is one of our bigger countries with quite a lot of people that play here, and Australia also. But anyway, Mind Candy was started only about 5 or 6 years ago. Yay! Look at them. Those are all moshlings. There are, I don't know, there must be 148 of these things now, all with their own biographies, their own little places where they live. Okay, the idea, now this was all before my time, so I'm just reporting this corporately. Michael Acton Smith came up with this idea. The story's actually great because they were like about 2 seconds away from going completely bankrupt. You may have heard him tell this story. He does, if you've ever seen him at a conference. And he came up with this idea for this little monster that you would, wouldn't it be cool to own your own monster, to be able to look after your own monster. That's, the whole thing came from that idea. And even in the early days, he had this idea that it would, from this digital heart, and it would be all online, it would be an online game, would come all this other stuff. So he had this sort of vision at that time, and his sort of what he calls his audacious vision for the company is to create the greatest entertainment company in the world for the new digital generation. So that's pretty audacious. And it's great to work for somebody who has that kind of vision. So there we do have a zombie. He's pretty dumb. These were the 6 original monsters that were created 5 years ago in Battersea, UK, when they were like 4 people in the company. And from that, it's gone into complete major global success. In the game, bless you. The game, I think, the game really appeals to this 6 to 11-year-old age group that we've been talking about that's so hard to engage. And it just hits all these things that the nurturing, they like to play puzzles. And the thing that really, they talk, at Mind Candy, they talk about the hockey stick graph. It was all kind of burbling along until they made it social. And they figured out, Mind Candy figured out a way to make it so kids could communicate with each other completely safely within the game. So there's no way that there could be any infiltration from outside. So yes, so that's the site. There was a cat. Are you watching YouTube again? So there's this whole process for adopting a monster. You go and you adopt your monster, and then there's the parents get your email, and it's a subscription service. So there's no in-app purchasing. You get a subscription for a month, 3 months, a year, whatever. So, but then it's not an app. It's an online game. The app is coming. And kids adopt a monster. They feed it. There's currency, there's currency within the game, but you don't pay real currency. You get this currency by solving the daily challenge, for instance. You go on missions, and every time you complete one of these, you get rocks, R-O-X. That's the in-game currency. And you can use that to buy food for your monster, or to buy clothes, and to decorate your room. And it's all very wonderful, actually. I love playing it. It's one of the few games I can play. So yes, here we are now. That started, we'll look at it. It's something like 80 million registered users at the moment. Pretty overwhelming. There's our graph of global players. I'm sorry, I'm really good. These are just corporate slides. I'll get to the good stuff in a minute. Though it's interesting. And I wanted to give some background because I entered late in this. This game was already very successful in a way that you don't get with television. So there's some numbers for the UK, which I'm not going to read out to you because it's you all can read. There they are. Don't you hate when people just read PowerPoints? I can't. Also, I can't see it. Confession. And yes, this was this. The Consumer Products Group is quite proud of this because we really rank up there with some of the major brands, and it's been climbing. Because what happened was when children played the game, and they wanted to interact, and they wanted to have things outside the game. So they wanted to have moshlings, they wanted to have books, and it all grew out of what the kids actually wanted, which I found quite exciting. And so they already knew they had this popular website with kids engaged with the characters. So the next step was just to extend it outside a bit, like we have done with TV. and film in the past. This is inside the game. There have been 47 billion rocks spent. An overwhelming number. Just more statistics, and we have a very the thing that I love the most actually is the community team there is fantastic, and they're based both in the UK and in the US. So we have an ongoing, constant relationship with our users, with our kids. Testing obviously goes on for all the new features, but we have all these metrics. That was kind of this language when I first joined. I had to learn all that digital language, which and what it meant. There's also a magazine. It's the top-selling kids magazine in the UK by a long shot, and social networking as well. But the big social network, the big social thing for our kids is the Daily Growl, which is on the site and lets you know what's going on, and kids can comment and like and dislike, and a place for them to interact, participate. Okay, now, that's a blank. It's not going to be blank in a second. But I'm going to show you. So, okay, I entered with all this massive success. I had lunch with Michael Acton Smith to talk to him about something completely different. And he said to me, you wouldn't by any chance be able to produce a movie we want to do. We want to do a straight to DVD, 44-minute movie, Mushy Monster movie. And I said, yeah, sure, but here, listen to what else I have to say. Anyway, the lunch turned into a job interview. And I was just so intrigued by starting with this kind of popularity among kids. And Vince and I think, are going to talk about this in a bit. These were avatars. So there were no characters. And to be given the kind of task of creating a movie with starting really with just avatars, turning the avatars into movie stars, was my soundbite. I was quite proud of that. I came up with that quite quickly. I think that's why they hired me. It was, and I mean, that's what we've done. And the 44-minute straight-to-DVD film turned into an 80-minute feature film to be distributed by Universal, UK, nationwide theatrical release, releasing on the 20th of December. Whoa, no change in budget. Hey, and also no change in the delivery date. We did this in just over a year. So anyway, this is the trailer, I hope. We hope, don't we? Is it going to work?
Once in a lifetime, there comes a movie that will twist your gooberies forever.
Stop the music, will you? I've got an important announcement. Rory Scrawl is making a movie all about Monstro City.
Mushy Monsters, the movie. Experience mushy like never before.
The two of you should star in this movie, Monstro City, with Poppet and Katsuma.
Explore monsterific new places.
It's Lumpergeddon time!
In an adventure that needs to be seen to be believed.
A good old Jollywood extravaganza can solve any problem.
Get ready for Katsuma.
I'm going to be a superstar!
Poppet.
Katsuma! We've got to stop them!
Diablo.
Carbonized.
Lovely.
When I'm good, I'm really good, but when I'm bad, I'm even better.
Furry.
It's delicious.
And
Zummer.
And a whole heap of mushlings. Mushy Monsters, the movie.
I'm so excited I could dance!
Only in cinemas.
So I actually have a clip from the movie. Should we show that? I have the first, if anybody was at MIP Junior, you've seen it, but so you can snooze for the next 3 minutes. It was separate. I couldn't send it with all the other. For animators in the crowd, it's cell action. We did it with cell action and with some 3D backgrounds. So it was 2.5D, as we said. And we did it entirely in Britain. And the reason for that wasn't because I didn't want to come to Canada and work with some of my friends. The reason was because the director, who'd never directed anything, he'd only ever directed our music videos. And we loved the look of what he did, so much of the music videos, we wanted the movie to look like that. He'd never directed anything beyond 3 minutes. And he was having a baby. So I could not see having to send him out of the country. And it's hard to find 2D studios, as people may or may not know. And we did it with a studio in Penzance. And by the way, it turns out it takes just as long to get to Penzance as it would to get to Toronto, but never mind. And we did it with a studio called Spider Eye, and they were great. So this is the very beginning.
I knew you were worried about that bridge, but goodness me, it was safe as houses. Me, Mushlingologist coming through. Oh well. Oh, my. What in the name of snuffer peeps? What? At last I found it. The Great Mushling Egg. Ow! My leg! Ow!
There we are. Want to know what happens? Go ahead.
That's great. So it's due to be released December 20th, you said?
December 20th in the UK.
And
then it's going into Australia in February, and I'm not sure when North America. They wouldn't separate out Universal. Oh, that's what I said. It's distributing. They won't separate out Canada from the States, which I think is too bad because we know we have a real fan base here that we don't yet, or it's developing in the U.S. But anyway, I'll let you know so you can let your kids, any kids that are interested, know.
Okay, so just by way of format, Jocelyn and I are going to go through a few questions that we've prearranged, and then at the end we'll open the floor to all of you to ask some questions too. So the first one is, how is this different? You've worked on we worked on School Bus together, you worked on lots of shows where the brand equity was created in the books, it was linear, you could deal with the creators, the characters were developed. It feels like, as you said earlier, you really didn't have, the characters were avatars here, and the creators to some extent were your 80 million users. So how was that different for you in taking that brand equity from this form and turning it into a movie and then subsequently a TV series?
Well, the thing about Mushy is it was different because you didn't have the characters. What we did, we had all this feedback from kids, so we knew that the two most popular characters were Katsuma and Poppet. So they were there. Katsuma's the star, and Poppet's pretty much the co-star. I mean, it's the two of them starring in this film. And though it's Katsuma's story, I say to anybody like Larry Merkin, who will pick me up on my story, it's Katsuma's story. And so the thing that I'm actually, it's a little scary now that we're coming up to launch, is whatever it is the kids have in their head about these characters, they're going to see them talking and behaving in a certain way. So I'm really interested to hear when they go to the movie to see how they react to that. I'm hoping they'll just get caught up in it and just be interested in the story. The other thing about the world is they'd created this huge world, and you can explore some of it in the game, but there's a lot of it that you have never been able to really get into, and that was one of the things we wanted to do with the film, was to be able to explore these worlds. It was all like there was all this story material waiting to happen, but unlike something like the Magic School Bus, where the stories had already been told, and we already had that kind of format, these hadn't been told yet. There's a villain, and there are missions that you do as a player, but there was never any really linear storytelling, right? So that was really fun. It was, and we were working with people that created. The guy who wrote the script is Steve Cleverly. He and I co-wrote the script. I just added structure and a little bit of heart, and he had all the Mushy knowledge and the jokes. And so it was a really good team, but he just knows he's written all the biographies for every single one of these mushlings, and he knows the characters inside out. And he had a general story structure in his head, and we just worked on to make this work. And now, before you ask me, unfortunately, there wasn't enough time to feed it into the community and to get their feedback. And there's two problems with that, with this age group, is to try to talk about doing a movie too far in advance before the movie's going to come out, hard, because they want to know. We're now telling them the movie's coming out, and there's huge excitement. And so a lot of the feedback on the movie will have to come from the community after they've already seen it, and this keeps me awake at night, because I really want them to like it. And
you talked earlier about going into places in the movie that you couldn't go to in the game.
Yeah.
Is that something you felt the community wanted you to do? Were they frustrated, or were they wanted to explore those places in more detail, the places they couldn't go to?
Well, they make them up. So we knew that they themselves contribute. They're unbelievably creative. Every year they run a contest for kids to design a mushling, and that mushling actually ends up in the game. And it's just, so their contribution to these things is, and their sort of investment in it. Now we didn't go to any, we went to the places that were actually already there, so they hadn't actually said, I don't think, we'd love to know more about Jollywood, for instance. But they say, oh, there could be this kind of place in March, and these kind of characters could live there, right? And this is going to be informing the TV series we're developing, but we'll get onto that in a bit. Yeah,
well, I was just going to ask you how the TV series and the movie overlap.
The TV series is just more about going to as many possible different places. The thing that's great about this world is there could be anything anywhere in this world. So the TV series is more like falling through squirm holes and discovering new parts of the world that we've never explored before.
And how far along are you with the TV series?
Very early development.
And is there the plan to launch it for is there a plan to, so the movie is being released in December in the UK, the idea for the TV series to be released is 2015?
2015, yeah.
2015.
With a fair wind. We've all developed TV series before. It's the same. There's nothing different.
So, the point of reference, going back to our experience on School Bus, and I'm sure some of the other things you worked on, the point of reference has always been a creator.
Yeah.
And the point of reference here
are the kids.
Yeah. And so you talked about earlier of there being a great community team in both the UK and the US. Are those your avatars for the kids? Are those your ambassadors for the kids? Or do you collect data, or do you do both? Because I can imagine the data can be overwhelming.
There's tons of data, and there's a whole group of people that are analyzing it all the time. And then there's, so we know which are the favorite Moshlings and what, what kids are doing with their monsters and how many kids are playing missions and all that kind of thing. And the community team they're the ones that, they're on they're on Facebook and Twitter, and they're sort of in contact with the parents all the time, and they are the ones that write the daily growl and get feedback from kids, feed it into the rest of us. So whenever we have an idea that we just have a sense of where the kids are with the game and with the world, which informed us.
And do you have periodic checkpoints as you're working along to check with the people that have that sense, or
oh, you mean the community team?
Yeah, the community team, yes.
We're all in the same place. We talk all the time. It's great. I love that.
And how iterative is the process? So when you do something, you say you talk all the time, but they must have something to look at and must say it works.
No, what I mean by that is they're always giving us feedback from what they're hearing from kids and parents, and so then it's like, do with this what you will, kind of thing.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, it'll be, and once the film comes out, it'll be more specific when we've had a film and we start hearing from kids about what they're thinking. Now it's all excitement, and we're hearing they're planning Mushy movie parties before they go to the cinema. I love that. But then in the TV series, though, we're planning to use kids more regularly in creating the series, and having them actually design places we may go. And like I was saying, they already are, but focus it, get designs in from kids.
Right.
We're setting up an advisory board of kids, 4 kids who have played the game but are now old, have gone out of it. They give you really interesting feedback. These kids who loved the game but now they're sort of 11, 12, 13 and they're not playing anymore. 4 kids that are playing now, and then another 4 kids that don't play. So to see we're testing this out to see what kind of input we get from. We wanted a balanced group of kids.
And that's to see where you're going to go with the series?
Yep.
Wow. And what kind of process is that? You're getting their input. Are you pitching them stories? Are you showing them?
We'll be pitching them stories.
Wow.
They're going to have to be pretty much, well, they will be UK based and pretty much where they can get to London, because we want to actually physically meet with them to begin with. This is all, we're sort of doing this as we go along. And then once we have more material, we can put it out online to the community, to more kids, to involve more kids.
That's right. And in terms of the movie, introducing, I think you mentioned earlier, you're introducing the movie to the audience kind of slow, or just kind of all at once, or early, soon before it launches, and then they're going to do what they will, and you talked about them having Mushy parties. But are you releasing clips? Are you planning on doing things as you go forward? Yes,
there's a new mission in the game that'll be coming out where Dr. Strangeglove, who's the arch villain, he decided that the movie's being delivered within the game to I forget where they're bringing it, to the studios, probably to the studios, and he steals the film canisters. I did point this out. I said, digital guys, you digital guys, and we're talking film canisters. And they just ignored me because they're visual, obviously. And he steals the film, and so you have to go and get. Each time you bring back a canister, you get to see another clip in the film. So that's going to be going on in the game. There's all sorts of competitions. The magazine's doing a whole bunch of stuff to support. I mean, it's absolutely amazing to be in this position of having done this with this incredible fan base in place. And Universal is reeling, they hadn't really, until they went in and started doing research, they didn't really appreciate what a huge fan base there was. And but it's the first time we've taken it. The first time they've taken it into narrative storytelling land. So it'll be interesting. So
describe to us you said it's been about a year that's been in production.
Yeah.
And fast, huh? You're real quick. And I'm sure there was a script at the beginning that we went into production with. How much was that script impacted along the way during production, both because of the normal creative process and that you're seeing something that worked well in a script but may not have worked well once you boarded it or done beyond there, and then how much of it was impacted by new information that you got from your 80 million subscribers?
There wasn't. It was mostly impacted by the normal things that that when you board it, it doesn't work, and there's no time for this, and also the whole thing of it going from 44 minutes to 80. And
that's going to impact it. I can see how that yes. Sure.
And we, pretty much. Oh, we invented some new moshling. The kids love moshlings, and we have actually little moshling toys that they collect. And this has been one of the huge successes for the brand. There's no other word for the world, other than. And so we invented new moshlings, 4 new moshlings just for the film. There's also, so it's not so much that we were responding to things that they were telling us, because after a certain point, I mean, we put as many moshlings in there as we could. And after a certain point, once we'd chosen Katsuma and Puppet, we were already basing all of our decisions early on. I'm not answering this very well, but I'm trying to. By what the information we already had. There was not that much more that came along as we were doing the film.
It didn't deviate, it was kind of more of the same?
It was more of the same, yeah.
So let me ask you this, because a couple of years ago there was a big buzzword that we all used in our business, transmedia.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep asking anyway. But how important is it, or how top of mind, I should say, because it's always important, how top of mind is it for everyone there to say, okay, we've developed this in a certain way for a game, we've now kind of extended it to a movie, we're doing it to a TV show. What's the commonality in all that? What is it that you say, this is the essence of the brand, that no matter where we extend it, and the first launch, of course, was the game, no matter where we extend it, these are the elements we have to make sure transcends it all?
Yeah. We talk about this a lot in Mind Candy. We talk about essence, and it's a term I got from working with the Henson company, was essence checking. That there's a certain, Steve Cleverly and Michael Acton Smith have been involved in Mushy Monsters from the beginning, and they both they're the essence checkers in terms of the world. The world has to remain consistent. Everything sort of has to fit in. And they're the ones that kind of oversee that. And Michael's amazing eye, so he's always looking at the design, and in the way that Jim Henson used to be able to look at, in the early days when I was working for them, I would bring the mechanicals, that's how old I am, for the Sesame Street magazine, and Jim Henson himself would correct the Muppets, right, so that there was always this quality control. And I mean, Michael can do that too, and he can tell him, sees things in these moshlings. What? This eye isn't right or something. So they Steve was very involved in the film. Michael came in and out, which was useful too, because he could see things, that we'd been going along, and then we'd show him an animatic, and then he'd point things out, and we'd change things because of his perception of, his moshy knowledge. Steve actually has the title in the company of being chief moshyologist. So it's all about keeping the world consistent. And Michael talks a lot about magic. That's that quality, but that's hard to define.
But he'll know it when he sees it.
He knows it when he sees it, yeah.
And going back to your director, because you said this is the first time he did long format. A lot of people would say that that's a big risk, especially when you have a brand like this. I'm surprised, not surprised.
I will say that this was the only reason we got this film done in this kind of time.
Really?
Because the people that we were working on it absolutely loved it. And they knew it. It would have taken me much longer to bring in another director and get him or her, up to speed in the world. I mean, I've been there over a year. I still can't name all these moshlings. It would have been much harder to get somebody. I think it would have taken us much longer. There would have been many more, hiccups along the way. And the only way we were able to do this is because these people were just so. They knew it, and they were really committed. Huge opportunity for everybody. The team was just, whoa, let's just do this. And some of them didn't know it was impossible, so I didn't tell them. There's great power in not saying this is impossible. I never said that.
Because you would think doing that in the time was doing.
The animation producer, she knew it was impossible, but I put tape on her mouth.
Did the director have challenges that were normal going from because as from what I understand, all he'd ever done were the short formats, and he was inundated with this data about the characters and what the digital world was like, and all of a sudden you're saying, great, now use all that and extend it into a long 44-minute then 80-minute film.
His job was to really concentrate on the look.
Oh, is it?
And yeah, and it was more for Steve, who is the scriptwriter, Steve and I, to more for Steve and me, to make sure that any new information or everything else was sort of being funneled through the script. Whip, his name is, the director. He's Dutch. And it was always Whip, work in progress. He just had to concentrate on the look and getting it done. And I think his biggest challenge, well, there was the challenge of, originally we thought we were going to be rigging 90 characters, and we ended up rigging something like 148. That's a lot. And and Whip's biggest challenge was he wanted obviously every frame of the film to look beautiful, and he was going to have to make choices because we just didn't have time. So, but actually it does look really beautiful. We were given extra time at the end by Universal, which was great, to go and make some fixes. So.
And how involved were they in the process?
They're a distributor, so they weren't really.
And we've heard
it's a license agreement or whatever.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you mentioned Michael earlier, and obviously the founder of the company, the creator of the concept. But he said recently that mobile strategy is going to be hugely important. That kids will go from borrowing their parents' iPads or tablets to having their own, and consuming content that way. How does that impact the distribution of this movie at all? Does it
not because Universal's distributing the movie. It's pretty much up. It's however they're going to distribute it is how it's going to be distributed. I'm not, though we will be suggesting ways where we might be able to do it more innovatively, and particularly to use our fan base, get it out to.
I would think that's a huge opportunity for them.
Yes, it is. And but we're just now worrying about the physical distribution, getting it into cinemas.
First things first.
Yes.
First you have to have a movie.
Right. The TV series, that is in constant discussion. For me as a creative, I have to constantly remember, and I had this image in my PowerPoint, but I forgot, I didn't get that far. Constantly remember that we're not, what I do now is no longer the stone that goes into the pond and causes the ripples. We are one of the ripples. And so the decisions about how to distribute digitally will affect us, and it's not the other way around. You just know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so it's quite interesting now developing this TV series. Things keep changing because we're experimenting with how we might distribute it and wanting to have as many different platforms and ways of distributing it as possible, but it has to make sense for each one and all that kind of thing. These challenges we've all had in television too. It's nothing new. It's just that this company's focus isn't on what I do. The company's focus is on the distribution at this point, and making things that work for tablet, and what I do is an adjunct to that.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
We have a music app coming out this Christmas too, which you'll be able to see all of our, download the music videos that we've got, and they're also putting the trailer on that. So going towards distribution via app and tablet that's where their company is concentrating.
Are there partners on board for the TV series, or is it something being...
Not yet.
So the theory being Mind Candy will finance the production of it, and...
I think they'd rather not. No, all this is being discussed at the moment. And meanwhile, I'm just developing it.
Right, okay. And so what did you find, if you could give us 2 or 3 things that you find completely different about doing it this way, based on a game than you did in the past, what would they be? Because I think we all feel like there are going to be more and more of these things coming from this kind of brand equity as we go forward.
Yeah, what's interesting to me, I don't know if this is going to answer your question now, is people are talking about using apps to test original properties before they go into TV, right? The thing, and I've been thinking that, now that's interesting, but we already have this incredibly successful online brand. So and there's not many of those yet. There will be more and more. I mean, there's, particularly for this age group. So yes, and the whole idea of linear storytelling, narrative storytelling, not linear, narrative storytelling, and then what's really interesting to me is how that feeds back into the game. So how these things all feed into each other. And the thing that's great about Mind Candy is they all want to have the discussion. Because I've worked before with games companies that didn't want to talk about narrative storytelling so much. But because at the same time as they're saying digital heart, they're wanting narrative storytelling to definitely be one of the ripples that come, that out of the digital stone, as it were. Am I making any sense? Does that make it? Yeah, I'm trying, because in some ways it's not that different. You have a property, you have a world, you have characters. Now that we've developed the characters and we have a world, moving out from there isn't that much different than the other things.
Well, let me ask the question the other way then, because we've seen lots of examples of terrific online games that are targeted to kids that have hit the scene, done tremendously well, and then after a year or two fade out. How important was it for Mind Candy to actually make sure that when they're high, they extend the brand to linear?
Very.
And do they feel like that is one of the things that's going to make a difference for them versus others that
they now talk about, they now use the word evergreen, which I find very helpful, because then I'm part of the evergreening, I think. So yes, I think that's because the game is only in English. And so there are the other part of this is that there are other markets that don't know the world of Mushy.
Right.
So film and television is another way of just getting it to more kids. And then when it goes onto tablet, the localization isn't going to be quite such an issue. So, it's all working beautifully together.
And I don't know if you know, because you're working on the film and television, but are there more plans to extend the brand beyond film and television, beyond the game? Because it seems like there is a great focus at Mind Candy to keep it fresh and relevant and somewhat reinvented in new mediums going forward. And this is relatively early in the process for a game, because many games have been around a lot longer, have talked a lot about film and television, but have not gotten this far. So it seems like there is a concerted effort, obviously, if this is happening. Are there more plans down the road besides film and television to do this, to extend the brand?
Well, do you mean into different digital platforms?
Yeah, I'm hesitant to use Transmedia because I know how much you hate it. So, but
I don't think we're allowed to use the word Mind Candy.
But are there plans to take it into other media?
Yeah.
Okay. And they're already afoot?
Yeah.
And the movie and the TV show are considered part
of all this.
Part of it. There used to be something called media asset management that feels like is being applied here for this.
Yes, I guess. Yeah. I don't think of it that way, but yes. Okay, it's not my part of the business.
That's interesting. Okay, well, thank you. I don't have any more questions. I guess at this point we turn it over to the audience. Is there anything you want to add, Joss?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I hope everybody's all right. It's the horrible one after lunch.
Madeline?
One quick question. You're the ripple. What's the stone?
The stone now is the digital. Right now, it's the digital distribution, if you will, of this property in other ways. I don't know if this is what Vince was just talking about, but the stone was originally the online game. So that's still, for Mushy, that's still what it is. Okay. And there are other things that are being developed in Mind Candy that will have other digital stones. Does that make sense? But that's where it starts. They're not going to start film and television, So.
Do they see the movie as a marketing tool?
Of course. Yeah. Yeah. I see it as this great creative outpouring. So I have to keep going, ripple.
Sorry. I get a microphone. I have two questions about IP. I have two questions about IP. One is, if kids are developing all the Moshlings, do their parents sign that away at the beginning?
They don't develop all of them, but the ones that win, they have to give us the rights, because we take them and make them work, and it's great. And we had this year we had 17,000 entries or something, and we had there was a gallery on the Strand where we showed all these. We had a gallery open for about 5. They were all available to see in this gallery for about 5 days. And the kid who won, Mind Candy does this kind of thing really well. They made a big deal out of him, and he came down. He arrived in a limousine, and he was so cute.
How old was he?
9,
oh, wow.
And a 9-year-old boy. Because people tell us, it's the game skews towards girls, but But there were, this kind of thing, really, the boys, a lot of contributions from the boys. And they have to make up the little biography. And this boy looked at because one of our Mind Candy artists had just used his design and then jigger-jogged it to make it work with the game. And this boy looked at it and said, the spectacles aren't right. I love that.
That's actually a segue to the other half of the question, which is, since kids are developing all this stuff, is there a risk that with the movie and then eventually with the TV show, kids feel like the creative has been taken away from them?
Do you think so? When the kind of vehicle for it and the container was given to them, so they're just pouring more material into it. To me, it feels like they feel like contributors rather than we're ripping them off. I don't think that that's.
I didn't really mean ripping off. I just meant like.
Sure, you did.
Well, at the end of the. At the end of the film, we list a whole bunch of players and give them credit.
I meant from the point of view of content. Like the first half was about ripping off, but the second half was as you develop more of what the story is and who the characters are and stuff. Is there a risk that kids are going to start to feel like, oh, well, these grown-ups or whatever kids think.
I don't know. Do you think they think that way?
Are now reinventing the world and it's less hours to invent.
I don't. I feel like they feel like co-creators more than. Okay, that's my sense from the kind of feedback we get from these kids.
They're not lawyers yet.
Yeah, not
that's
yet.
right. When they go to law school, it'll all change.
Sometimes their parents bring this kind of thing up.
I'm sorry.
So when you're developing the characters, are they kids or are they kidified adults or are they?
It depends on the character. It
so
depends
what was
on
your approach as you
it
went through
depends on whatever they sort of felt like to us. It was interesting because I hadn't thought about this until the other day, and somebody said, "How old is so and so or whatever?" And is this one older than that one? And as we were developing them, Puppet and Katsuma are definitely kids. They were voiced by adults. P.S. But just in case anybody was interested, Zommers. He's an old rocker, so that's how he comes across, that's how he is as a character, so he's a grown-up. Dr. Strangelove is definitely a grown-up. Buster Bumblechops, he's a grown-up. So it depends on the characters. Furry's kind of a big kid. You want me to go through the rest of the list? John, you're torturing me. It's on purpose. Did that answer your question?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I'm just curious because it's being released in the UK and then Australia. I guess eventually North America, hopefully.
Yeah.
But what was the decision in using what we would consider, I suppose, North American-based accents and not UK or?
There are some characters that are UK, but that just came out of who we thought the characters were. I can only answer it that way. When Steve wrote them, he's British. They came out like that. So
you really thought you cast based on every specific character and what they would sound like,
yeah,
accent or not.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, Lovely, the sort of ones that looks like a heart and a strawberry put together, she sounds like a Katharine Hepburn. That's kind of mid-Atlantic.
Some questions. There's a question over here. You go ahead. Don't worry about the mic. Just a sec.
I was going to ask, it's really interesting that you have like a kid committee that you mentioned. And what are the things that the kids that are older are injecting into, the ones that are finished playing? What sort of advice did they give you?
Yes. What advice did they give you in hindsight? I think.
Yeah, it's they sort of say what they remembered so well what they liked. They're more articulate because they're that little bit older, and so what they think or don't think a character might do, or and they're also the ones I've talked to about, because we've shown some of them little clips of the movie after we could do anything about it. They're really, they love that we have voices. So this didn't bother them at all. They don't think it's going to bother the younger kids. They have opinions on what they think the younger kids who are still playing are going to think. And it's just useful to get their take on it. Particularly We were looking for kids who really did play. You know, they were really.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. So it was really focused on the story side of things.
Yeah.
That they were sort of injecting there.
Yeah. They really. They make up incredible stories that they send us too. I mean that whole thing. When I first heard about I heard her talk about Mushy Monsters a bunch of years ago, when the woman who does the magazine was just saying that there was just this. There's a huge outpouring of somehow it stimulates this outpouring of creativity from kids. We just get tons and tons and tons of stuff from them, and it's all it's all story related. So there's something about this world and these characters and the story of it that hits. Yeah, and I just hope we've caught it in the movie.
Well, how do those kids, when they come in, they must make you feel one way or another in terms of catching it. I'm sure you're walking.
I haven't had that much contact with them yet. We're just setting up this kid for the TV show.
For the TV series, I see.
Hi. Is there a risk that once the characters start talking, the game might become less attractive because the characters will be mute? And after hearing them being so expressive, the old characters might look less interesting.
I'll let you know in about 6 months. We honestly don't know. Yeah, it's a good question.
That's a good answer.
It's one we've asked ourselves, but we decided to go ahead with the movie anyway.
I would just comment that it didn't hurt Pokemon.
Thank you.
We're in season 13.
Any other questions?
Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you,
It was
everyone.
really good.
Thank you, Jocelyn. Thank you.
Thank you. That was fun.